record, and I am contractually obliged to tell the other people on this show that I am recording. I have to let everybody know that they're being recorded.
Oh, fun! I don't see the timer when you record.
It's on mine. Yeah. Well, do you want me to stop and you can put it on?
Nah, that's fine. My computer's been fucking weird lately. I don't want to risk us losing a whole thing again.
Excellent. Okay. Should we roll?
Do you want to introduce the show?
I don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
That's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Of course.
Unless John wants to. John, you want to introduce the show?
No.
Should we count this as the show
care.
Intro? Us bickering over who's going to start the show?
I think so. You know, I
right,
don't know
that's
like
fine.
how many other shows start like that.
I don't think none of them do. I think all of them start with me going, "Hello, everyone."
Yeah, but you see, you bring a lot of energy to it, whereas I'm like, "Hi, well, here's a show," you know.
That was the feedback I got when I was doing wrestling commentary. That one show was the other commentator, who's very, very nice person, very professional. He had a suit on and everything. I was super impressed. He was like, he's like, oh, you can work on your energy and sound more excited. I'm like, I will work on that. And here we are. Are you wearing a suit right now?
Always.
Good.
I didn't have anywhere to go, but I thought I'll just put the suit on anyway.
Yeah.
And make myself feel special.
How many suits do you own?
The one I'm wearing.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think I have 4. I don't wear them very often though.
Well, define suits.
Something that you had to take to a tailor to get fitted.
Because I have a wetsuit.
Why do you have a wetsuit?
Go surfing.
You go surfing in Northern Ireland?
You can go surfing in Northern Ireland, yeah.
Is it cold?
So that's why you need the wetsuit, dude. So cold.
I'm in landlocked Ohio. What the fuck do I know about oceans?
So cold. We went up to Donegal to go surfing one time, and I didn't have my wetsuit with me, which is why I bought a wetsuit since then. And I thought, fuck it, I came all the way to Donegal. I'm not gonna, like an hour and a half, close to 2 hour trip. So I'm like, I'm not gonna not jump into the water. You know, it's a nice day. How cold could it be? The answer is very cold. It was very, very cold, but I give it a go anyway. And then I'm like, all right, I got to get a wetsuit. So along the top, like the north of Ireland, they do a lot of surfing. So there you go. I mean, it's not as good as like, Australia, but it's still pretty good. It's the best we can do. Is this still part of the opening?
I think it is.
Is this the intro?
I think it is. I think you also have to be careful of selkies over there. That's probably why I wouldn't be able to go out. Selkies.
Selkies?
Yeah, have you ever heard of the selkie? It's your culture.
Is this an American interpretation of my culture?
No, it's actual your culture.
What's a selkie?
It's like some sort of sea monster or something, isn't it? Or like not a huge one. I think it's more like I think mermaid-esque or something, but
but they're like a seal.
Yeah.
We call those seals.
Listen, it's not my fault that the sailors got drunk and horny over there and started seeing naked ladies everywhere.
Not just the sailors.
Not just the sailors. That's good.
Can confirm. Not just the sailors.
Yeah, no, they'll drown you. Yeah, that's usually how that goes.
Wait, are we keeping this bit in the intro too?
Yeah, why not? I mean, that's a villain that somebody needs to fight. Yeah. Aquaman should fight the Selkie.
Yes. Get on that.
He couldn't get drowned though. That would be the one flaw in the Selkie's plan.
But they could bring him out of the water and then air drown him.
I don't think that works for him. I think he's able to breathe both very easily.
Oh, well then just shoot him.
There you go.
Problem solved.
Well,
why does nobody shoot him?
He has super durable skin because his body is used to the pressures of the dark deep.
Boy,
so like bullets kind of bounce off of him like Superman. Okay, I read Aquaman. Listen. Okay.
All right. Here's the deal.
I know this.
Here's the deal. Leave it with me. I will figure out a way to kill Aquaman by the next episode of this show. How does that sound?
That's good.
I will kill him. Trust me. Aquaman I will kill Aquaman by the next episode. That's a cliffhanger, or what is was it a cliffhanger? A reason to watch the next show, everybody who's listening, if this is the intro.
I think a cliffhanger would be if you had like Aquaman like clinging to his life against you as you go in for the death blow, and then it cut off. That would be a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's more of a hook for the next show.
Yes, this is a hook for the next show. I promise.
Maybe that's an episode idea.
Yeah.
We just pick a villain, or we pick a hero, and we decide, and we talk about how we would kill them.
I think that's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good idea
too. We'll keep we're keeping all of this.
Okay.
This is how our planning. This is how our planning goes.
Excellent.
It starts off as a joke, and then we get an idea.
This is our show. This is how we write the show. We just make it up on the fly. Hi everybody.
Hi. We've not even bothered to introduce ourselves yet. I'm Corey.
Welcome everybody to the Smark Avengers. What I have a feeling is going to be the best episode of the Smark Avengers. It seems like it's going off to a great start. We're here to talk about comics. It's me, and I'm here with John and Corey. Hello, guys.
Hello.
So, in today's episode, it's not the Aquaman death episode. That's next week. Today's episode is going to be about some B-list or C-list or even further down the alphabet list of characters or villains from comics that maybe don't get enough love, that you kind of want to talk about a little bit more, shine a little light on them. And we've got a couple each. I think we've got, well, we'll see how much time was left after that incredibly long intro. But we're going to go like 3 to 5 characters each, and we'll see what we've got. And I'm looking forward to this. I'm very happy about my list. I've got a pretty good set of characters. What do you guys think? How do you feel?
I think mine is not a great list at all, to be honest.
The power of positivity. Perfect. Good. I like your confidence.
Mm.
You know, do you want us to go first so that, like, while me and Corey are talking, you can, like, scribble some other ideas down if you want?
We'll buy you time.
No, it's all right. I'll wing it.
Good. As we've seen, that seems to be the general way we do this podcast anyway. So you're in safe hands. Who wants to go first and talk about a little villain? Do you want me to go first?
I think you should, Dylan.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start off by talking about the guy that I wanted to do the show about, because there's a character that I really like, but he's a bit of a like loser villain, right? Every time he turns up, like, we all know he's not going to do anything important or good or really, like, he's just kind of there. He's a silly character, but I love him. I don't know why. Right? I think he's just a great character. And by the way, most of my characters are from Spider-Man, because that's just what I happen to know the most about. So I went with my first pick. I wanted to talk about Hydro Man. Are you guys familiar with Hydro Man?
Yes.
Yes, I love Hydro Man, and I don't know why, right? Because every time you see him in the comics, like, what's Hydro Man gonna do? He just squishes into the Sandman until he turns into the Mud Monster. That's happened like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, the first time you're like, wow, but the third time you're like, these two guys should stop meeting up. It's not gonna work out well for them, you know. But I just always have a soft spot for Hydro Man, even though he is a big stupid loser. You know.
So Hydro Man's deal is, as the name would suggest, he controls water and can turn his body into water.
Yes, he can turn himself into water. Yeah.
Now, can he control water, or is it just like his body is water?
When they see, I think that's something that they haven't really fleshed out in the comics. From what it appears to be, it's just that the molecules in his body, I guess, can turn into water, so he can control his own mass. Whenever it's water based, I suppose. But I don't think that if he was in the sea and turned into his water form, he could control the whole sea. Right? But I think that would be an interesting angle if they did that or tried that or something like that. I don't think they ever have. They're just like, oh, here he is robbing a bank. And you're like, good, excellent. You know, really using him to his. But I think that's part of it too. Like the idea of Hydro Man is that as a character, he's very dim. He's not a smart man, and so probably wouldn't have the smarts to. I don't know if it really you'd have to be that intelligent to think that if you can turn yourself into water, there's a good chance that if you jump into the sea, you can control, you know, a fair amount of the sea. I don't know if that's like if you have to be in Mensa to figure that out, but he's always played as a bit of a dumb idiot, and he's just kind of there to rob banks and be a filler character, you know. But I like him. He's really good.
Hasn't he just recently been killed by the Carnage symbiote in I think that new Carnage on running book?
Wow, they brought it back just to kill him.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a comic book death, so you probably won't stay dead for long.
Well, and he can turn his entire body into water, so you know,
like how
imagine it'd be difficult to kill him.
How did Carnage kill him?
I haven't read it, but I believe he basically like absorbed Hydro Man's powers to kind of give because this is just the alien symbiote. It's not like Cletus Cassidy, I think, and so the symbiote was just trying to get some mass to add to the, you know, like basically a body to fill the suit, but for some reason he wanted Hydro Man to fill that role, but like not have to deal with Hydro Man's bullshit and like have his voice in his head.
Fair enough. Fair. I haven't read the new Carnage stuff, but like a lot of the newer Venom and Carnage stuff that I hear about, I'm like, I'm not interested, man. I love Carnage. He's one of my favorite characters, and I feel like, you know, I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Let's save the Carnage episode for a different episode.
Just to give you some clarification, I looked him up using the amazing search resource that is Wikipedia, and it does say that Hydro Man can merge with and manipulate larger bodies of water when he's in his liquid form. He can increase his mass and cause tidal waves and tsunamis. So maybe that contributes to his stupidity in that he doesn't just take control of the entire ocean.
Right. Like, why does he just do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, or why doesn't anybody write that shit? Because you feel like nobody's writing that. So
there's a monster in one of the recent Spider-Man movies that are clearly kind of based on him.
Yes.
But it's not him.
Oh yeah, I got super excited. I'm like, it's Hydro Man, and then it's not. Like,
no, it's just a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember the episode from the 90s cartoon about him, because he was like, wasn't he like portrayed as like Mary Jane's ex-boyfriend?
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I think he was voiced by Rob Paulson.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Who is an incredible voice actor, who we're all very familiar with, I would say.
He's got one of those voices that you definitely recognize it.
Yeah. Once you hear it, you're like, I know him. Yep. So I think that, like, because I love all of his characters as well. Maybe that's part of why, you know, you have nostalgia for it, but I really like Hydro Man. So that's my first pick.
Holy hell, he shows up in a lot of things.
Right, but also
cartoons.
But not in like a really like.
No.
You know, he's just kind of there, gooping around.
Probably he was in 2 episodes of the the 90s Spider-Man show, and that's probably the biggest attention he's ever been given.
I would say so, yeah. Which is a shame. Whenever I start to write Spider-Man, I'm going to bring him back. I'm going to make him a major player. You hear that, Marvel? That's a threat.
He was created by Denny O'Neil too, which I'm a big fan of. Denny O'Neil is one of my favorite writers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hear for Denny, who he just recently passed away about a year or so ago.
That's a shame.
Yeah, well, he's very old, but yeah. Yes. So, speaking of people passing away, I'll go ahead and do mine. I'm going to start us off with Solomon Grundy from the DC world of things. He first debuted back in 1944, and he was an original villain of the very first Green Lantern. And essentially, Solomon Grundy is a zombie and or a revenant, probably closer to a revenant than a zombie because he doesn't like eat brains. But yeah, no, Solomon Grundy, just a big undead dude. And what's fun about him is that you can kill him guilt free because he's just gonna come back again later.
Always a plus.
Always a plus. But yeah, no, superhuman strength, very invulnerable. I think he's technically immortal. Essentially, his backstory it varies on who's writing what, but the most agreed upon one is that he was a mobster who was done in, and they dumped his body into Slaughter Swamp. And due to some fuckery that occurs in the supernatural swamp there, he is resurrected. And anytime he dies, he comes right back through the swamp. As such, he's usually tied. He gets tied to Swamp Thing. But Solomon Grundy's kind of an interesting character in that he kind of gets used everywhere. Like, he's considered in the Batman villain role. He started out as Green Lantern villain. He was a big part of the 90s Starman comic book series, JSA, just because of that previous, relationship or being a villain of your very first Green Lantern, Alan Scott. Swamp Thing, because of the swamp. He kind of just gets used wherever you need him. And yeah, no, I just think he's fun. Oh, and a very fun thing about him is sometimes when he gets resurrected, he comes back different. So sometimes
how does he come different?
Well, sometimes his body is bigger than it was. Sometimes he comes back very gentle, like a sort of very innocent and pure like. One time he came back super intelligent and was a big bad for the Justice League for an extended storyline of like, oh, what happens when Solomon Grundy is super intelligent? You have a very big, very strong and vulnerable demigod, essentially. And yeah, like I said, he is a sympathetic figure at times. He's straight up villain at other times. He's interesting in that sense.
The way that he can come back and be different, it cannot be like manipulated, or is it just random?
It seems to be random.
Okay.
I know that when they did the New 52 relaunch, they had a different take on Solomon Grundy as they did most of their others. For one, usually Grundy is wearing like a suit that's all fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
But in New 52, he looked kind of like a Cenobite from the Clive Barker Hellraiser movies. He's like wearing like a leather apron and shit. And the depiction there was that basically he was an avatar of a like sort of the embodiment of disease and rot and decay. So played around with some ideas on that one.
Okay. It seems like that's the kind of character where like there's layers to it.
Yeah, you can pretty much do whatever you want with him.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, here's a big invincible guy. I'm like, you could play around with that.
Yep, he's been like you said, there was the crossover Elseworlds event Deceased, where he was in one of the miniseries. He was sort of a heroic character in a sense because he was already kind of undead, so he was helping out with the kind of the zombie outbreak in the DC world.
Can he control zombies or just like
he's not technically a zombie,
right?
I mean, that's what's weird about him. He's closer to a revenant than a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, you ready to go?
Yeah. I figured for my first pick, I would go for another Spider-Man villain. Although he's a guy who probably wouldn't consider himself like one of Spider-Man's enemies. He's just sort of a down on his luck kind of crook who's just trying to steal some money and, live as stress-free life as possible. But obviously being a crook in New York City, you keep running into all these superheroes and whatnot and them foiling your plans. But yeah, this is the Shocker. Herman Schultz.
I had him
The
on my
Shocker
short
was
list.
one I'd considered.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking about the Shocker. Yeah.
I mean, he's got such a distinctive look for one thing.
Yes.
I do love the kind of yellow quilted, suit that he wears all the time, seemingly.
He's
and-
it off.
Yeah, like how does he eat? It doesn't have a mouth.
That's true.
Who knows? But yeah, and he basically designed his little, I'm not sure what you'd call them, like vibro shock gauntlets or whatever.
I would have said gauntlets. Yeah.
Yeah, and he figured I'll use these to just basically shake safes so much that they fall apart, and then he can take the money from them.
It's foolproof.
Yeah,
Yep.
it worked. And then obviously he kept running into Spider-Man, and then getting sent to jail, and then coming back out, and then getting dragged into all these different villain groups as well, like the Masters of Evil and the Sinister Syndicate, and then the Sinister Six as well, the boomerang version of it. But yeah, so he's been around and he's done a lot, but at his core, he's just the kind of guy who, would quite happily probably hang up the vibro gauntlets and retire if he could, but he's just looking for that one sweet, payday, and he'll probably still be a villain until he gets it.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, have you read The Superior Foes of Spider-Man?
Oh yes.
That is some great Shocker material in that.
Yeah. I think he's quite anxious in that as well. Like
absolutely, super paranoid.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't he be? It's always ballsy to me if you're a villain in the Marvel world operating on New York, because it's like not only is it the place just crawling with superheroes, but like Punisher lives there too.
Mm.
Doesn't seem like a fun time.
You get people like the Scourge as well, like going around killing villains and stuff, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, but he's got that quilt, the probably bulletproof.
I know the quilt costume is basically designed to keep his bones from shattering while using the gauntlets.
Yeah.
And
But
that
people
makes
forget,
sense.
people forget that the Shocker beat Spider-Man in his first confrontation with him as well. Granted, Spider-Man was sort of suffering a bit after having an earlier fight with the Lizard and apparently, spraining his arm as well. But still, like, a win's a win. So
yeah, take it.
Take them where you can get them. Especially against Spider-Man. He's tough.
He is.
Spider-Man. That's my tip. If you want to beat Spider-Man, have somebody else break his arm. Then fight him. It's a good tip. I like the Shocker. I had him on my little list. He was on the short list. Because like you said, there's just something really distinctive about him.
I like the design, yeah. That design.
It sticks out. I think it's the colors as well.
Yeah.
And what I love about him is you would think that because he's yellow, because his name is the Shocker, his powers would be electricity based, but you'd be wrong.
Yeah, not really. He's just a fucking. He's just a.
I like to vibrate things, but the vibrator just comes with a lot of weird connotations.
Yeah, don't know if we're gonna go into all of that right now, unless you guys want to. But
I
feel like maybe leave that one alone for a different show. But it's good that we're all fans of the Shocker.
Yeah, I think it's your turn again. Unless John, you have anything else you want to add about the Shocker?
No.
Okay. All right. One other guy I wanted to talk about is another Spider-Man villain who I really like. And again, I'm not like 100% sure why I like him. There's just something about him. Now, in Spider-Man, there's a lot of like criminals like the Shocker and the Hydra Man. But there's also a number of mob bosses, crime syndicate people. There's that whole other underbelly. And there's a couple of different, leaders of mob bosses, like the Kingpin, for example, probably the most famous, but there's a lot of other ones. And one I think doesn't get enough shine is Hammerhead.
I was wondering when you started off with that if you were going to be going back to Hammerhead with that comment.
Yes, I love Hammerhead. I think part of it is because they don't really do it so much anymore. But when he came in, he was like, he had this very stereotypical, old timey gangster talk. You know what I mean? Like from the 1920s.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if they still do that. But then I don't even know if they still use Hammerhead. They might not, and that's why I think that he's a guy that I would like to kind of see come back. I think part of the problem, like I said, was that there are an awful lot of crime bosses in Spider-Man, and people usually default to the Kingpin or somebody like that. They don't always go for it. And even then, there's like a bunch of people you pick over Hammerhead. People would pick Tombstone, I think, over Hammerhead. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I think he's just such a weird character. I like his look. I like his kind of, like I said, that old 1920s gangster style. It makes him stand out a little bit more from like a lot of the other guys. Like what I do like is that Kingpin and Tombstone and Hammerhead are all three very distinctively different people, which I think is a really good idea. You don't want all your crime bosses to act the same. That would be
It is nice to I enjoy a crime boss character because there are so many of them, and because they're not traditionally super powered or whatever, they don't get the big all-star treatment. But like the Falcone family, the Maroni family, and like the Batman world, they're kind of just there to exist to sometimes give like villains somebody to bounce off against. Yeah,
well, like that exactly. They kind of exist as like a focal point for a story. But what I do like about Spider-Man is that's become. There's been plenty of like gang wars and stuff like that, and blood feuds between all these guys, and seeing other people coming up like the Rose and all that stuff. I really like that because I like that in regards to Spider-Man, because I think that in Spider-Man we kind of forget that, like, we always go to like the super powered people like Hydra Man, and then like crazy villains like Venom and Carnage who are from space, or like these criminal geniuses, or these like insanely mutated or fucked up kind of characters, and you're like, well, it's nice to kind of grind things a little bit with these mob bosses, and I think that Hammerhead is one of the best examples of that.
Well, he may not have powers, but I mean, he does have a adamantium like head plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a big flat head.
Yeah.
Can't knock that,
He's got a steel plate in the head, or a metal plate in the head.
His whole thing, he's not based on an animal like a lot of Spider-Man villains are. He's not from space, he's not a genius. He's just a fucking guy with a big head, How can you go wrong with a guy with a big head, So that's it. Hammerhead is my second pick.
He always seemed like he should have been like a Dick Tracy villain to me, rather than Spider-Man. But
well, again, though, don't you think that that's a good, like, the fact that he is that character in the Spider-Man world means that he kind of stands out a bit,
Oh yeah, totally. And to answer your question about what he's doing these days, I was just reading the latest Daredevil run, and he
Carnage him.
No, not this time. But he was one of the sort of mob bosses who was kind of trying to figure out how to slice up New York, since the Kingpin had effectively retired to become mayor of New York. So he had a minor role in that, nothing too big, but he's still around.
He's still in the mix. It could be him.
Could be.
You guys, have you? It does remind me. This is kind of unrelated, but are you aware of the Enforcers?
Yes.
Yes.
They're just like they seem like the three guys that would always be associated with him, or should be.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you disagree with a guy whose name's Fancy Dan?
It's the suits, isn't it? You feel like you see them in their suits, and then Hammerhead in his suit. You're like, they seem like they hang around at the same kind of parties, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever I write for Spider-Man, I'll bring back Hammerhead and I'll bring the Enforcers in there. It's another threat, Marvel. It's happening. Anyway, Corey, what's your next guy?
We're gonna keep it DC for right now. I'm gonna go with Johnny Sorrow. Have you ever heard of Johnny Sorrow?
Nope.
No.
Johnny Sorrow is another JSA villain. He's kind of Lovecraftian in that he's a silent film actor who, after stealing a high-tech device, Sorrow found that he had turned intangible. His physical form ceased to exist, and his soul traveled to the subtle realms. There he met the King of Tears. King of Tears gifted Sorrow a mystical mask that allows him a physical form and special powers in exchange for his soul. So he's kind of like a bit of a Event Horizon kind of horror character in that sense. Like he's cosmic, and yet he is also like fantasy based horror. Because his powers are so unique and kind of odd, he doesn't show up very often because it's kind of difficult to work with those within that kind of those constraints. I will tell you that he does have a very fun weakness, and that is he is susceptible to his own power. So if he looks at his own face, he fucking gets sucked into a portal back into the subtle realm. So the quickest way to, like, in a very make, you know, Rumpelstiltskin style attack against him, if you can make him look at himself, he will disappear.
It's an interesting angle.
Yeah, like you said, he's a very unique character. But like you said, his powers kind of leave him in an area where you can't do too much with him because of that. But he's always fun when he shows up. Unique look, unique powers.
Yeah, he looks at. I had a look at Googled him. It does seem like an interesting character. You know, I like it. Stylish. Johnny Sorrow. That's a great name as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great name.
So I was thinking for my second pick, we've had various goblins over the years. We've had green goblins, hobgoblins, grey goblins, but someone who's sort of goblin adjacent was a fellow by the name of Jack-o'-lantern.
Oh, I came close to putting him on mine.
That's good. Which one though?
Well, this is the thing. There's been about 5 different versions at least. The first one I've got a soft spot for because the man behind the flaming pumpkin head mask was Jason Macendale or Macendale. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But he was the Hobgoblin in the Spider-Man animated series, which obviously really loved as a kid. So and he in the comics he did become the Hobgoblin as well after Roderick Kingsley kind of disappeared. So he was the first of many, and he is sort of goblin adjacent because he doesn't have any like superhuman powers or anything, but he pretty much just flies around on like a flying disc and likes to throw pumpkin bombs. Some of them have like big gnarly scythes as well, which they use as a weapon. But yeah, he's just got one of those cool looks, and especially when he gets beaten up as well. So there's like I think, I don't know if it's the 4th or 5th version of Jack-o'-lantern, but in the one of the Venom solo series,
Agent Venom.
Yeah.
That's the one I was gonna pick.
Yeah, that one was probably the gnarliest of all of the Jack-o'-lanterns because you didn't really know anything else about him. He was just sort of this crazy guy, basically, and he'd get beaten up by Agent Venom a lot as well.
So his deal was he was like a kid that was obsessed with Halloween, and he was basically abducted by the crime master and kind of raised to just indulge in his sociopathic tendencies. But he looked all fucked up because he ate a grenade essentially
Yeah.
in his first appearance against Agent Venom.
Yeah,
So he
yeah.
like blew his nose off and most of his teeth. So he looked like a jack-o'-lantern. Yeah, no, I love that version because his he also had like he had wild powers. Like he had like explosive candy and like little cartoon devil robots that would like fly and attack people. They really Rick Remender, who wrote Agent Venom, really expanded on that whole character. Especially because his fun thing of whenever he killed someone, he like to carve the inside of their skulls out.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he was a fun character. The original also pretty fun as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would have picked the original because I'm also a fan of Jason McIndale because I remember him as the Jack-o'-lantern and also the Hobgoblin in the comics, and also like you said in the TV show. I believe that was Mark Hamill
Yeah, it was indeed. Yeah,
did the voice of the Hobgoblin, which was incredible.
I think it's a
so
big
good.
reason of why I kind of love the character so much is the voice.
But also, I thought that was really cool of the TV show to put a lot of focus on the Hobgoblin instead of the Green Goblin. But that was a very interesting take. Everybody kind of defaults to the Green Goblin as Spider-Man's big old bad, and the Hobgoblin had a pretty big, important run in that show.
Well, I know that at the time, apparently James Cameron was tied to making some Spider-Man project because it was why they couldn't use Sandman. Is that he was apparently tied to it. So I'm curious if maybe that had something to do with it.
I think it's something to do with that. I don't remember what it was, but I remember there being some kind of legal issue as to why they couldn't use the Green Goblin. So they went with. Fortunately, they have plenty of goblins, so they're like, well, we'll use the backup goblin.
I always thought it was because Toy Biz basically had made up a Hobgoblin figure before they had made a Green Goblin figure, so that kind of forced the makers of the show to kind of go with Hobgoblin first. But it ended up working out for the best anyway, because it meant that they gave Norman Osborn more of a sort of backstory, and you kind of got to see him, make his fall from grace. Yes. And then when he does finally become Green Goblin, it kind of felt more impactful because of that.
Yeah, you see him more as a person, whereas with the Hobgoblin, it's always as a Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
What I like about the old Jack-o'-lantern as well, like you said, he's Goblin adjacent, not just because Jason McIndale was both, but also because it did seem they were very, very similar characters.
Yeah.
They still had pumpkin bombs and they kind of flew around in this little device. You would think that they're. I don't remember. Was that part of it where like Jack-o'-lantern stole some stuff from one of the goblins and then like altered it to make it different? Because I know he got the Hobgoblin stuff at some point, and then he also tried to get the Goblin like formula for himself. I don't know if he succeeded, but he tried that. So we obviously had goblins on the mind a lot. But then also that guy was like clinically insane, I think, or there's a lot going on with that guy. It's quite the character.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're just putting, would you be like Jack-o'-lantern as a character instead of like one specific Jacko?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's enough that you can take from each different version of him that it's pretty interesting.
I agree, because whenever I started reading after the Clone Saga, they introduced a different Jack-o'-lantern who was Mad Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And that got really confusing. That was another case of people who write in Spider-Man just not tying up loose ends and then somebody else coming in and tying it up, because that ended up being two different people, which was McGuire Beck and Daniel. What was it? The one of the Mysterios? Was it Daniel Bernhardt?
Yeah, that's the one.
Those two were both Mad Jack. So that they were Mysterio adjacent. And they used their like trickery and illusion stuff to kind of like make their version of Jack-o'-lantern seem more of a mythical character than previous Jack-o'-lanterns, which again is an interesting take, but like by the end of it, like that's confusing, Do you anything else you want to say about Jack-o'-lantern?
No, you take it away with your next choice.
Well, I was
Okay.
actually, if I could interject real quick, the only thing I
Yes.
wanted to point out was when you started off saying that this was another goblin, or it was right before you were introducing the various different goblins. I thought you were going to say Demogoblin from Maximum Carnage.
Well,
classic.
Jason Masondale was the demo goblin as well.
He was, and then because again he wanted to get more power for himself, so he made a deal with was it Mephisto? He made a deal with a demon.
I mean, who else but Mephisto, right?
I think it
Yeah.
wasn't it the demon who's kind of associated with
the Inferno thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So he got this demon grafted to himself, and then they split somehow. I don't remember how they split, but so Demogoblin became like a separate character. So it was both really, and then he died too. I guess he'll be back.
Yeah.
Can't keep a good goblin down.
Did you get eaten by Carnage?
I hope so.
Let's say yes.
That Carnage, man, he's hungry.
You can't stop him. He's very rude. Shouldn't eat people like that, you know? But then Venom was always eating people's brains, and nobody said nothing about that.
No, that was fine.
Like, that's totally normal for a person to eat brains. Go ahead. The Carnage eats one or two people, and suddenly there's an outrage, you know?
Now this is completely unrelated, but did Matt Gargan ever have any sort of like epiphanies after he no longer possessed the Venom symbiote of like all of the people he consumed? Like, does anybody ever have to deal with the fallout of the cannibalism they partook in?
Well, Matt Gargan's probably the wrong guy for that, because he was pretty insane. Being the Scorpion like drew him insane. So I think him being the Venom,
he enjoyed that. He enjoyed the hell out of himself. Exactly.
Him being Venom, like they played it up as like he loved the ability to go and kill people easier, and you're like, well, that's an interesting take on this character. So he probably like had a great time with it, you know.
But that's not your next character. Who is?
What is the Scorpion?
Oh, there you go.
It's not Scorpion.
Oh, okay. That was awesome if it was that coincidental.
I was just making it clear, like, are you referring to Scorpion? Because I'm not. Although I do like Scorpion. And they've kind of teasing him in the films, you know, and I wish they'd play up with that, but I think we're running, well, I don't know, it's like maybe like 15 minutes left, so I don't know if we're going to be able to get all of these done. So let's do our third one at least.
Okay.
And we'll see how the time goes. So what I'm going to do for one of mine is I'm going to tell you this little story about this character who I only discovered yesterday. He wasn't going to be on my list. All right, I probably would have put Shocker instead of this guy. But I heard about this guy, and I'm like, I have to talk about this. And I can't believe I figured this out right before we were going to record an episode about B-list villains. So this guy's probably like way further down the list than B, for a little bit of context, because I don't think any of you will have heard of him. But I heard about this guy, and I have to talk about him, and you'll see why as I explain the situation. This is a character from Marvel Comics called Pestilence. But it is not the Pestilence that was one of Apocalypse's Four Horsemen.
All right, go on.
This is a character from the comic book Alpha Flight, which of course we're all very familiar with. We all love Alpha Flight. Yeah. So this character is not Canadian, even though Alpha Flight are. Let me explain this, okay? This fucking blew my mind. I'm from Northern Ireland, and the closest town to me is called Banbridge. And in the middle of town, in the middle of Banbridge, there is a monument to a man called Francis Crozier, and it's got little polar bears on it because this guy was an explorer, and he went to the North Pole, like, you know, back whenever that was a thing people did, you know, and he froze to death, as you do, because it's really cold up there, right? But he was a really famous explorer, and they made a monument to him in the town that I basically live in, right? So Marvel Comics took that real life guy I thought, fuck it, we're gonna turn him into a villain who's gonna fight Alpha Flight. So that actual character who existed in real life, who came from a town about 4 miles away from where I live, is also a villain in Alpha Flight called Pestilence. And they did the backstory. He really was, Francis Crozier. He went on the ship. He went all the way to the North Pole. The ships froze. He had to bring his crew out to the ice because they ran out of food. They're like, maybe we'll just walk around the North Pole and stumble across society. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. And he did freeze to death. They kept all that backstory in it. But then they marveled it up by saying he concocted a magical potion. Of course he did, all Ulstermen do. Where he thought, I'll drink this magical potion, and then my crewmates will just leave me to die in the ice. I will sit kind of like frozen on the ice for a little bit. Then because of my magical potion, it'll like restart my heart or whatever. I'll come back to life. And I'm not quite sure what his plan was, because he'd still be stuck in the Arctic. But he was like, this will be great. But what happened was his crewmates thought he was such a great captain that they buried him under the ice. So he was just kind of like a lost soul that was trapped there for a long time. Alpha Flight did some kind of weird bullshit where the rest of the story is confusing. As if that first bit wasn't confusing enough. But the rest of the story is basically Alpha Flight go to the North Pole to do some sort of ceremony. They realize that Pestilence, this new character, has been caught under the ice for so long. His spirit comes back to try and take one of the members of Alpha Flight as his host so that he can, wreak havoc, as comic book characters often do. And I think they kind of killed him off pretty quickly after that. But I'm not a big fan of Alpha Flight, I'll be honest with you. But I heard about that yesterday, literally yesterday, and I'm like, I can't believe that probably the only character in Marvel Comics history who is from Northern Ireland, who is from so close to where I live, is this fucking guy. Like, it blew me away. I'm like, I just want to add,
I'm looking at the Wikipedia for this character, and the very last thing it says before it jumps into powers and abilities is, recently it was revealed that Pestilence had found a new host, but he was caught in, quote, some sort of disintegrator blast.
Some sort.
How unfortunate for him.
One of them.
Hey, it happens.
Yeah. Oh, not again. Disintegrator blast. But you can see it's a real character. You can click on the real character, the real person. It's based on the real life captain. It's all there. And I thought that was too fucking weird to not mention on the show.
No kidding.
So there you go. Pretty sure you guys don't have him on your list.
No.
That's accurate.
Yeah, there you go. So since neither of you have heard of this character before, let's you probably don't have a whole lot of other stuff to ask about. So Corey, do you want to go with your next guy?
Yeah. So this is another DC character that is tied to the Justice Society. But I'm going to be talking about one of the later incarnations of them. But this is Ragdoll. So the very first Ragdoll was created in the 1940s and was a villain of the Flash. And Ragdoll essentially looked like a Raggedy Ann doll. But their thing was that basically they were a contortionist that could like rob banks. And they had a bit of an upgrade in the 90s where the costume design got a little creepier. And they became a cult leader as part of the Starman series. And if it's any indication, I really love Starman. But I want to talk more about Ragdoll's son, Peter Merkel Jr., or also Ragdoll, who was a main character in Gail Simone's Secret Six book. So Ragdoll is a contortionist. Except this Ragdoll was not born with the innate ability like his father. Instead, he had to have very numerous painful surgeries to have his joints replaced with a artificial ones that would allow him to bend and compress and just twist his bodies in various ways that not even like the world's best contortionists could do. Of course, another problem would be that he has like a special like lotion that he puts on his body because the joints are artificial. If he doesn't, they're going to tear through his skin. And he's just a creepy little fucker. He's horribly disfigured because of all the numerous surgeries. And also, as just for fun, got his genitals removed because he just thought they would get in the way.
Yeah, I like the use of just for fun.
Yeah, they just get in the way. So he got them removed. But yeah, no, Ragdoll is unsettling to be around for prolonged periods of time. He is considered a disappointment to his father. He has a very strange relationship to his sister Junior. And yeah, Ragdoll is a very fun character that should show up a lot more than they currently do.
He sounds very relatable, frankly. You know,
I mean, he's kind of is in a weird way. Like he has issues he has like father issues. He's a bit of a outcast and a weirdo. His relationships that he does form with people are oddly very sweet. But yeah, no, and that's absolutely just that's some Gail Simone writing right there, because Gail always does things like that very well.
She's really good.
She is.
Yeah, I really like Gail Simone.
So I think I recognize him from The Flash as well. I believe he was in a few episodes of the CW series like a few years ago. I'm not sure when the last time he appeared was, because it's been a while since I've watched it. But yeah, I definitely recognize him, and he was very sort of creepy in that, like the way, like the guy they got in to play him was fantastic in terms of like doing all these unnatural movements with his body and looking like almost like a puppet come to life. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
But yeah, and that's what's really funny is that the other he's honestly considered maybe the tamer of the other two Ragdolls, which are his father and his sister Junior. Basically, they're just a family of abuse that it's all fucked up.
I mean, that bit's not good. But what I was gonna say was, what you want from a villain is that unsettling kind of nature. I think, like some villains really, you want to bring out that more than others, and because it just adds a little bit more to that character. Especially, what did you say? That was in that guy, what the comic that character was introduced in?
Oh, Secret Six.
Right. So there's going to be other characters in that. They all have to be very different, very distinct from each other. You want that character to be more unsettling than the other ones. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good angle.
So yeah, John, you're next.
Well, I know we've been talking about D-list and C-list, but if you're gonna talk about a B-list supervillain, then you have to talk about Swarm.
Oh, I love Swarm.
Now, I can't remember if we discussed him in a previous podcast or not, but
I don't think we did.
The general gist of Swarm is he is, an evil Nazi who was involved in World War II, and then he escaped to South America, where, he was living a nice, peaceful life as a beekeeper. Discovered a colony of mutated bees, as you do, and then the bees basically they pretty much ate him whole except for his skeleton, and because of the weird mutation of the bees, his consciousness was kind of absorbed by the hive, and then they basically allowed him to kind of take human form, but from the bees, basically, while his skeleton remained inside. So, he was just basically floating around, causing all kinds of trouble, fighting like the Champions and Spider-Man and all these different people, and, not to too much success. But he's sure. Still looked pretty cool, and you can't knock him for that.
I always liked Swarm because I thought that was such a weird character, you know, because not when you see like a man that just is made out of bees, right? Nothing about that makes you go, he's probably like a Nazi scientist. You know what I mean? Like, but they're like, no, we need to add layers to this guy, right?
Yeah.
We need to really give him a backstory. He's a Nazi scientist, and now he's made out of bees. I mean, it connect the dots here, people. It's all right there, you know.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yeah. I like Swarm just because he was such a weird character. You know, Spider-Man was really good for that. Just these odd, like.
Marvel has a lot of really weird characters like
Yeah.
that. There's also like the living laser
Mm.
and like fucking paste pot Pete.
Trapster. He was on
Yeah.
my short list. He rebranded himself as a Trapster briefly. I don't know if he's still a Trapster.
I mean, how could you go wrong with a name like Paste Pot Pete?
Well, that's exactly where he went wrong. People kept making fun of him.
Ah, shame.
Can
You don't see
believe-
Shocker taking off his quilted, costume just because Spider-Man cracks a couple of jokes.
Well, that's exactly it.
Get some resolve.
Spider-Man makes fun of PS Pod Pete. He gets angry, changes his name. Spider-Man makes fun of Shocker. He doesn't care. He's a man. He gets on with his business.
Exactly.
You know.
So Dylan, do we have time to do another round?
I think we're pretty close to
Maybe
coming up on time here. But
I guess maybe just rapid fire.
I was gonna say, do you want to just, if you've got two left each, you want to just go through the two we've got left real quick?
Yeah.
Should we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So
that
my
would
other
be-
two, I'm gonna do my two real quick. One's a Spider-Man villain. One's kind of like an all-over villain. Vermin, who at some point was a really good Spider-Man villain, and I feel like the longer time has gone on, the less good he's become. But he used to be played really, really well as this kind of rat-ish guy who lives in the sewers and that Spider-Man was legitimately afraid of at some point because he beat him that badly. He's in Kraven's Last Hunt for anybody who wants a reference point. But then after that, the more they kind of use him, I think that lessens his appearance. I don't like that because I thought he was a great character, but I don't think he's been used as well anymore. And the other character I was going to talk about was the Taskmaster, who I don't think is like a real big A-list guy, but he could be because he's a guy that can kind of watch other people fight and they can learn their fighting abilities and adapt to that. And technically, it sounds like he could be, an unbeatable villain. But I think that that's kind of where people draw the line. They're like, we don't know what to do with him after that. How far can we go with this? But I thought those are two guys that like maybe don't get enough kind of props. Taskmaster does more than Vermin, I'd say, but they're two really interesting characters, I think. That's
I think Taskmaster appeared in the Black Widow movie as well.
Yeah, but
I
it was
think
so
he did.
divorced. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so divorced from the regular concept that it was almost a brand new character anyway.
Absolutely.
Right.
Kind of like the Hydro Man's problem.
Yeah, not even the same thing. So
So my two are from the world of X-Men and also from the world of Peter David's X Factor run and where they showed up. My first, I've talked about him as probably, I don't think it was this. It might have been in the previous incarnation of our show, but I love Arcade.
Oh yeah.
I love the gimmick of having like just a guy who has here's an amusement park of death. Enjoy. It's always good for like a 1-issue or a 2-issue story. It's fun. He also had like his own series where he was killing off like young teenage characters by putting them in a battle royale / Hunger Games. It was Avengers Arena or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoy Arcade for that reason. No powers, just super intelligent with a lot of money and can build death traps. And then the other one is Trevor Fitzroy of the X world.
Yes.
Basically, he's from the future, and he's basically an energy vampire. And I liked his team. I liked his group, the Upstarts, and their whole deal of like this bounty hunting or like killing other mutants for fun. Or it was a game where they were to assign like points of, you know, like who did you kill, what were the points worth, and it was just like a contest between them. But yeah, no, he showed up in Peter David's X Factor run and has an interesting backstory now of being Cyclops' daughter's boyfriend, essentially.
Whoa, what?
Yeah. So in X Factor, there's a story where Jamie Madrox gets sent into the future.
Yes.
And there he runs into an old man Cyclops and his daughter, which is implied that it's his daughter with Emma Frost, named Ruby Summers. And
Okay.
Ruby's boyfriend is Trevor Fitzroy. And you see why he's an insane villain as a result of Layla Miller's powers.
Okay. Because I read part of that, but I didn't get that far.
It's a good story.
I think that was what was the name of that storyline? I have the trade paperback where like they do that whole bit where they send Layla Miller and Madrox into the future, but like that's part of like a bigger story, you know. Manifest Destiny, is that what it's called? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the story that sort of is the lead in that involves a twist. Because this is years after that story happened, because it was one of those like people would write Peter David like, hey, what about this plot point? There's a Madrox dupe out there that's like stuck in the future, and that's part of the payoff.
Right. Well, I didn't get that far into it, but I read the beginning of it.
Yeah, it's a good time. I love Peter David's X Factor run.
Yes, it was good. Really, really good.
So yeah, John, up to you.
Well, I was originally going to say Arcade as well, because
hell yeah.
The thing is with Arcade is it reminds me of Austin Powers, where, you know, Dr. Evil's got Austin Powers all captured and he could end the movie right then and there, and Scott Evil's like, I've got a gun in my room, let's just, you know, go and shoot him. And then yeah, that's just not the way it works, and it's not the way it works for Arcade, because he'll put you in an elaborate death trap instead of just shooting you.
Yeah, it's very thematic with Arcade. You know?
Yeah, it gets bored easily.
It's fun. Exactly, it's fun. You know.
It is. But yeah, since you've already said him, I will say Boomerang, who is obviously a minor villain character who has got a lot more attention in recent years. Another kind of beneficiary of Nick Spencer's Superior Foes of Spider-Man run. He started his own Sinister Six, which only had 5 members. And in the more recent comics as well, he actually started rooming with Peter Parker.
Yeah, I was about to say, didn't he end up being Spider-Man's roommate for a while?
Yeah. So yeah, and it sort of helped redeem him a little bit as well. So he's, I don't know, he's got villain tendencies still, but he's trying to be better. So yeah, he's a character who's actually had a bit of growth, which is kind of rare for villains in the comic book world, really, because some of them just tend to, you know, fall into these same holding patterns, trying to do the same thing of killing the good guy or robbing banks or whatever. So yeah, that's pretty cool that he's you know, moving forward with his life.
Well, that's the thing about the Superior Foes like run, is that all the way through that they paint a very clear picture of what the Boomerang character is. You know what I mean? He's incredibly untrustworthy, and he's a real asshole. So any kind of like, not to say that he couldn't redeem himself, but you do feel like it's like a Big Show heel turn. You know what I mean? To bring it back to something we all know about. He can redeem himself, but you know, as soon as he gets to see the dollar signs in his eyes, and he's gonna turn again and become a bad guy. You know. But again, like that's stuff you could write and use. You know. But that's part of his character.
Yeah, for sure.
So there we go. There are quite a few little B-list, C-list, and even further down the list characters that we did. Hopefully you guys, if you're listening, thank you very much. Maybe you might have had some of these guys on your list as well. if there's like, let's be fair here, there are plenty of other characters that people don't even get a chance to talk about or haven't been seen a whole lot. The Squid. What happened? Where'd he go? The Squid is an old Spider-Man villain. You know, guess what he does? He's a squid. They're really good. But there's plenty of other characters like that. If you have any you like or you agree or disagree with any of our stuff, leave them in the comments. Put them in the comments. That's how YouTube works, apparently. Put it in the comments, and then they promote the video better. So just write stuff in the comments. Doesn't even have to be English. Just write stuff in the comments, and we'll be good. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we wrap things up?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. Well, like we said, we'll be back again next week with what did I say I was gonna? Oh, killing.
Yeah.
Aquaman?
How do we kill Aquaman?
Was that what we're gonna do?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. Well, that's you. There's only one way to find out. You're gonna have to tune in. You're gonna have to hit subscribe. You're gonna have to do all that other stuff and make sure you don't miss the next incredible episode of the Smark Avengers. It'll blow your dicks off, and if you don't have a dick, then you're in luck. Nothing will happen. But that's a good way to end it, right?
Yeah, Jason Momoa, your days are numbered. He could probably eat the hell out of us. He's very big.
Well, but I can run away really fast, though.
What if we all got on each other's shoulders? Then we'd be bigger than him.
We'd be really big. You see, you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
You're like, we could do it.
It could work.
Mhm.
It could work. I mean, factually, we would be bigger. I don't know if that would make us any better at fighting a man, but
You could say
we
it would make us even like less stable.
But we'd have 6 fists flying towards him.
It's true. Like a Dr. Octopus situation.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a whole lot of downsides to this, frankly.
I think we should do it. Let's go
Okay.
find Jason Momoa.
Yeah. What's he up to these days?
Not a lot anymore.
Not after we get our hands on him. Is this the end? Is this still in it?
we started off really weird, and now we're ending really weird.
This is what happens whenever I do the intros and the outros.
It happens.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.